Greetings. The following video was recorded March 24th, 2020. The original plan was to release it during Worldwide Regression Week 2020 in mid-April. However, it soon became clear to both Pedro and I that this conversation might be more useful for all of us to be released as soon as possible.
I'm Candace Craw-Goldman, your host for this series, and today I'm welcoming my really lovely friend, Pedro Frias, who lives in Portugal, and he is a spiritual teacher and quantum healer. And before we even go on, you all should know we are recording this the 24th of March to air sometime the second week in April, which puts us all in a really interesting position. The first one being, I can't get my hair trimmed right now. So it's a little crazy. Hopefully we'll even out, and a lot of things coming up hopefully next month. So welcome, Pedro. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting. It's an honor to be here and to speak for your show. And let's all get through these moments as you are doing it with the best spirit and just being happy and adapting with everything that's been happening.
Yeah, that gives me goosebumps. You know, the theme for this series is Unleash Your Mind, which is really pretty interesting if you think about it, because the idea of a leash, of course, is a controller, a human that controls an animal that's on a leash. And just even saying that is giving me a lot of goosebumps. I think part of what's happening here is humanity is becoming unleashed. The controllers are falling apart. Our world is in an incredible amount of chaos, which many of us saw coming. But you and I both, and many of us out there, many quantum healers, we're very positive about what's coming for the future, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And as I was saying yesterday to one of my group meetings that I do in Portugal, we were discussing how these layers of energies can then start like 5, 6, 7 years before it goes down to the physical plane, if I can say in this way. So what we are seeing now, these collapses of structures that we need to face and deal in the 3D worlds, for everyone listening to understand, it's something that we started as our heart's desire way back. And we pray, and we have been doing this quantum healing, and every modality in the world, Reiki, everything that's been doing in the world just ramped up this energy that I think now it just ecloded in this way. So I don't find the coronavirus to be something bad necessarily, because it's a must-needed change. And just look at the planet. How can we breathe now? It's amazing. Yesterday I was telling my daughter that she was taught in the school 1 month ago by her teacher that in China they couldn't breathe, and they showed them pictures. And then I went to her and said, look what's happening. Now it's a clear sky in China. Everyone is looking at the sky finally, because they would never see the sky because of the pollution. So it's a lot of good things happening for the planet. So I also believe that.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of people going through a lot of challenges. You know, the virus is a very real thing, and there's some very real personal stories, and people are deciding to exit the planet now, you know. And as Pedro and I were talking, and I've even said in other interviews, I don't know, you know, there's crazy chaos even in my own world. I'm in my basement. Why? Because I brought my 90-year-old father out to the farm, who had up until now been living in his own home with some help, but that no longer was going to work out at all with everything going on. So I've got him upstairs. But, you know, old people don't like change, but, you know, humans don't like change very much. And that's what's really, really interesting here is you and I and other way showers, other light workers, other spiritual teachers, we've been talking about this for so long. And we've been doing it, like Dolores says, spoonful by spoonful, right? I mean, little bit by little bit by little bit. And this is what we do. We talk about all the time. There's a massive amount of people that are basically, if you imagine this as awakening, they've been asleep for so long, and it's like some giant thing is in their bedroom, just waking them up very violently. They're going to need help. That's why we're here.
Yeah, for sure. I think at this time, all spiritual healers in the world, they just look, it's now. Come on, we are ready. And I think everyone jumped in and saying, let's do something. And I'm doing my best to try to mobilize. I'm doing online meditations now with trying to engage most people every day at 10:30 in the night. We are meditating together. And I managed to gather more than 500, 600 people now. But this Thursday is going to be repeated again. And I leave the meditations on Facebook recorded. So we are mobilizing people, and people are getting this question in the air: what's happening and what can we learn from this? And I think everyone can definitely learn something from this experience, which is making us, like you said, change. No human likes to change. And we as therapists that work in helping people to change, this is the best thing it could happen for people to change. But let me just say one thing. Just remind, when we are educating a child, that we say to a child like, hey, you have been a bad boy. So go sit over there and think about what have you been doing. And I feel like that's what God is doing to us right now. Just go home, close yourself at home, and think about what have you been doing. And interestingly enough, all countries are experiencing that. Even England, that was like a step back, saying, oh, we're going to conquer group immunity with that. At this day, 24th of March, they decided yesterday to close down everything. They are just in quarantine. So go home, think about what you've been doing to your life and to the planet. So it's a much needed time for reflection, in my opinion.
Wow. So according to Pedro Frias, the whole world has been put on timeout, and that's because you're a dad, and I'm a grandma and mother. So I know too, timeouts can be kind of effective. Interesting way of putting it. Well, let's talk. Well, first, I need to ask a question. The meditations that you're doing in Portuguese or in English?
Yes, I'm doing in Portuguese, but because Portugal is a place, especially the south, with so many English people, I'm also doing I'm planning one in English too. By the time the show goes up, it's going to be for sure in my Facebook or website. Then I'll leave the address or the website for sure.
Sure. And I clicked in the other day when you were doing that and shared it around, and I got a lot of people back going, I have no idea what he was saying, but it felt good. And isn't that the perfect way to talk about vibration and frequency?
For sure, in a different language. And this is everything I teach, and all my teachings, it goes down to that. I don't focus too much on thoughts or even behaviors. I always focus on vibration. Doesn't matter what you think or do or say, as long as your vibration, it doesn't match what you're trying to get. So for me, it's all about the vibration, for sure, 100% sure.
Yeah, well, I enjoy your vibration so much. That's why you and I have gotten along so well together for so long, and both of us,
Same here.
Of course, starting with Dolores Cannon's work, but expanding from there. Of course, I've taken it to BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, which is this sort of umbrella thing. But you've kind of come with your own version of this work, and you know what? If you don't mind me talking about it right now, because I forgot
Please
about
do.
it till just this second. I had more time travel dreams last night. I've been having time travel dreams. I've been sharing a little bit of the information, but not much, because dreams, don't know always about what's going on with them. Sometimes you're looking at things and you're working things out, and other times they're prophetic, etc. But time travel dreams. And then in this dream that I had last night, I'm going to take notes while you talk. I actually was in a dream having interactions with, believe it or not, sleeping children in a big dark room. Imagine that for symbology. Anyway, I was able to, when the thing that was, whatever was happening, the action, let's say, around me was happening, that I'm like, wait a second, I don't prefer that, whatever that is. I could step out of my dream, just like, and go like into a video editor, back up the scene, and change it into a way that was more pleasing. That was my dream last night. I did it multiple times in my dream. And you do this timeline. Wait, you call it what? You call it, go ahead. You talk about it, but it's about
It's
timeline.
timeline prescription. We said the word in English, prescription. It's like
Rescripting.
Rescripting, exactly. So what I do is 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I was doing just a normal QHHT session, I decided to go a little bit along, because since I teach hypnosis throughout the country, and we always do some experimentations and try different techniques and just put all the techniques, eventually it's no longer QHHT, as you know, so it becomes this very mixed therapy. And suddenly I saw this past timeline changed. And I said, wow, what happened here? Because this man in different, I think one of the videos last year I talked about it. So just to keep it short, we can change and rescript all these timelines and past timelines and just activate different timelines. We can also do this in the present. It's a bit more complicated because you don't see it, the outcome of what we are changing, and we have to believe and lock into a vibration to do it. But regarding your dream, it's very interesting that you are mentioning that, because children, just pay attention how this all connects. Children in a dark room, as you know, I'm an analyst of symbology and all these unconscious symbols. And so sleeping children means that the inner child of people are somehow asleep. And the dark room means the fear that they feel. So people don't make their inner child awake, or they don't bring the inner child up here to the hearts, or they don't. I'm getting confused with the English words, but you understand what I'm saying. So in order to bring this inner child that we all have more forward into our lives, become more spontaneous, become more innocent, more vibration, more joyful as well, we need to release fear. And that's one of the important messages. And this connects to one vision I had. I was seeing coronavirus in my mind, and I saw this very white rabbit facing left in top of coronavirus. And it was like a playful rabbit, white rabbit. And this was like a week ago.
Okay, hold up, Pedro. I'm going to have to stop you right there and ask you some questions. And so I did. For those of you listening right now who are wondering what in the world I am talking about, why I stopped the interview, wondering what questions I might have wanted to ask Pedro, it is fairly easy to do some quick research to satisfy your curiosity. You might start looking up something called Project Looking Glass, or you might research some recent social media postings regarding following the white rabbit. Pedro and I did go down that rabbit hole for a while, but I'm editing all of that out of this particular interview. You are invited to research these ideas on your own if you're not already aware of them, because the whole point of this broadcast is to focus on the world and reality we wish to create now. Okay, sorry for that interruption, and back to the interview.
Now I'm having goosebumps, because what's going to happen now, it's so crazy. You're going to love this, because this is a chance to give you two things. One was a conversation I had with Dolores Cannon on deep meditation. And another one is how to really make everyone watching understand how this timeline things happens right now in the world. So this fraction of this reality, and remember that when you were focusing or remembering that, you were just looking at sideways, like turning your head away, and you feel that energy and you want to cry because it's so sad. What we need to understand is that on reality, everything is real, but everything is also an illusion. So every aspect of reality, even that reality where that never happened, it's also there to be activated. So cut into my communication with Dolores Cannon. I was meditating after the first meditation with our Portuguese friends, and I was so into love, and that moment was very important because I felt that really down of energy. I just jumped up a few levels in energy. So I was feeling really enlightened in that moment. So I just set myself for a little while alone. It was like 11 in the night or something like that, and I started to have this meditation, and then eventually I connected with guides and someone appeared. I don't know the name, but I see the energy coming. And eventually I called Dolores and said, is this the new earth? Is this the change, the split between the new earth? And I was dying to tell you this, but now I have the opportunity to tell you this dream because it's going to relate to everything we've been talking prior. So she said, no, it's not the new earth. And I'm just looking at her book right there. Funny enough, Cannon just in front of me. And she was saying, no, it's not the new earth. It's not the old earth. It's all the same, which is a concept that it's a little bit different from what she was telling us when she was alive. And she was saying, no, it's all part of the same. It's the new earth. It's the old earth. So what do you mean? And I was getting a bit confused. And she just showed me this very American city with all these roads next to each other, like this, like you have in like New York, where the cities are all very parallel.
Grid. It's a grid system.
Yeah, grid system. So she was telling me this. She said, look, coronavirus, think about it as a city, right? And we all just came into the city from different directions. We are now in the coronavirus city. If you connect two to the left, you're going to be in a horrible scenario, and you're going to see all these people collapse and dying in front of you, and you're going to be in a really dark spot. But if you keep on meditating like you just did, and you keep on putting your energy up, you're going to be shifting road by road, just fraction by fraction, away from the dark spot. So what happens is that you can then change as a collective. A group of people can now change into a different city. But the reason why spiritual healers brought themselves to coronavirus as well is to work as a rubber band. It's like you are pulling yourselves back to go further into the enlightenment energy. So as far as you come back, you're going to do that and bring people with you. Eventually, if you change city, those people in those dark spots are going to look at the city and say, wow, this is a little empty. They're going to feel the energy of this next city where we are in, and they're going to glue it, and they're going to copy it, and they're also going to be moved. So what does this mean regarding what you were saying about the white rabbit thing? What I got from the white rabbit was that this was the secret for everyone to create their own immunity, because you can access that energy inside your body. It's very stupid just to think about an idea of someone thinking that's going to take like from a human body and then take it's going to work, because we are producing it as we speak, or not, depending, because the human body is so well done. So then she explained me that. And then eventually I was moving in time to 1600 and 1500. I was bringing there, my guides brought me there, and I was looking to these people's lives. What I was asking, what I'm doing here now? What? Oh, we need to change this because it's very important to change this from, I believe that 1500s and 1600s, I don't know why, was very important to have this different energy, because from that point on forward, humanity could have gone a more open heart situation that would avoid coronavirus situation at all. So we wouldn't have this. If by that point in those 2 centuries, different choices were made and more expansion from the heart was made, then here we would be in the different timeline. So, okay, I understand that. And so there was a lot of insights for me at that point. So the thing is, as I was saying, my advice for you, Candice, regarding that is just think about it as the non-real situation. And when I do therapy using my own timeline technique, what I do is I make them go back to the beginning, even if in their imagination, that's fine. Just imagine that that never happened, that never took place, that the first guy who remembered that was just silent somehow because of coincidence. They couldn't meet someone, and though they didn't put the idea out there, the idea was never there, so it doesn't exist, it never existed. Now, if you can think about that and you can focus on that and believe on that, eventually you will become living in a city where that never existed in the first place. Make sense? I'm not hearing you again.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
no. I
Okay.
actually muted myself because I
Okay.
was closing some windows. My internet's jumping around a little bit, or yours is, one of ours is. So pardon me. I didn't want all those clicks to show or to be heard. I love your positive spin on it. And of course, that's, and this, again, not to make it light. And, you know, I mean, there's always we can do anything we want with this video. We can release it early if, heck, you know, actually, that's not a bad question right now. So we started out talking about this video. We are recording it March 24th to be released during Worldwide Regression Week. You know, maybe we should release it sooner. You know, I could release it today if I wanted to. Because actually there's in the same world where people talk about this symbology and some of this information and some of these clues that are being given out, there's this idea of, and maybe you've heard this too, this idea of the 10 days of darkness. There's also the idea of the 3 days of darkness. And some people are postulating that in the first part of April, communications might be limited even more severely, including and possibly even the internet going down. So we're going to have a lot of time to go in our own thoughts now and not do these kinds of things. But, you know, what do you think? You think we should give more people an opportunity to hear what we've just talked about there to help shift that timeline? I may need to do a little creative editing because who knows about those censors out there and some of the words that I've said. I may cut out some or mute us as we're talking and put down like a scroll about some of these issues because stuff is being deleted right and left off the internet. There's a battle going on out there. There's a battle. And that battle is for your vibration, your mind, and your heart. But what do you think? I mean, if we got people to focus on some of that right now, we could be doing some of this timeline shift there in the next few days, right?
Completely. What I'm doing in Portugal is I've done now 3 different meditations, and I'm going to just put it out there because anyone can just script a meditation and do with a group on their own. And we are talking this worldwide, so everyone out there can mobilize their communities and the people they can reach, as you can, Candice. You can just create a story and mobilize everyone in the quantum healing world. Because the first one was the story and the script I did was something as simple as that. People focus on their energy, and then they will feel the connection with Mother Earth through their feet, and then the light would come up, and then eventually you would open up and you would go up there collectively united, where we would be received by these amazing light people and ascended masters and angels, and all your guides will be there receiving you. Then all in joint hands together would open this very big beam of light that would pierce on earth and would just make everything change. I did this once with violet light and once with white light. And then people would have to imagine that shift in the earth and changing. And then eventually when you come down, just lifting like we do in sometimes the scripts, you know, just coming down to earth again. And then when you get to earth, it's all different. And then I say, now just you're arriving to earth where everything is different, where everyone is happier, where everything is light. And everyone got visions of like this potential future earth of just electric cars, for example, and everything was very green, and nature was perfect, and everything was perfect, and just that feeling. And then I make people bring that feeling back and say, now just lock on that vibration and just keep on feeling that you're already there. It's already there. It's already there. That's one of the meditations. The other one was just fast forwarding to the moment where we all go out saying, victory, 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 hugging and seeing children playing in the park. And when I say that, even when I conducting the meditation, had to go out of screen because I was just crying myself out. And I understand that this is a very important moment to just feel that energy of children playing in the park. You know, one thing just for finishing this concept and for comedy as well, purposes, because we do need to laugh.
Yes, we do. Laughing is so important, even now. You know what? Especially now. Especially now. We must laugh.
We must laugh. So as I was saying, being at home, quarantine, we are now understanding what we are asking children to do from morning to to sunset, because we are making them be in school and then leaving school, going to make these activities, and then you have to do your homework and you have to go to sleep, and then you have to do this and that and that and that and that. And I think it's a important opportunity for us to really look into us and say how we are treating our children, because
yeah, I think that's so. I was actually looking in my phone, seeing if I couldn't somehow share a photo right now, and maybe I'll do that in some of the editing. As a matter of fact, let's just do that now. Here's a photo of my grandchildren right now. I'm going to edit it in.
Yeah.
It actually shows my grandson Theodore. There's a hallway. They're not allowed to go to the park right now.
Yes, here in Portugal too.
He actually has one hand. He has one hand on both sides of the hallway. He has his sneakers on the walls, and he's actually climbing the walls. He's up on the wall like this. But the photo's even more brilliant because my third grandchild, beautiful. Oh my God! Look how crazy it is. I can't even really say her name. Maggie. Her name's actually Magdalena, but we call her Maggie. She was on her scooter, and she scootered with her helmet on, and she's like on the underneath. She had just come underneath him while he was climbing the walls, and my daughter's like, "Look at what this life is right here." She's trying to. So there are other people who are talking about this celebration, including our president. He and I've had multiple time travel dreams with our president. I haven't talked about them very much. I've alluded to them, but I haven't talked about them. Why? Because there's a huge division of sentiment about the person who is the president of this country. I've held off on talking about it. I haven't been involved in anything political in so very long. I moved myself from that so long ago, but I feel a sense of coming celebration. I think many of us do. Many of us light workers do. We don't know what it looks like. Just like we didn't know, we felt a sense of chaos for what's happening here. And we didn't know that had to do with a virus and closing everything down. We did know this eventual crumbling of what's going on, but we didn't know the details. I don't know that anybody has. I mean, so, talk to psychics about that. I've never called myself a psychic, but I'm like, all I know is chaos. Chaos is coming. And here's what I can say now, the 24th of March, there will be more chaos. There will be more chaos before there will be less chaos. Hopefully not much more. Hopefully not for an extended time with a lot of more challenges, but there will be more chaos. And then there may be a celebration like the one you're talking about, and doing these meditations and bringing that feeling you talk about it being, it's the magnet that brings it all into our actual physical reality, right?
True. And we are moving away in that idea of streets. We are moving away to get ready to go eventually to another city. But for everything you said, I come up with these two concepts, two ideas. One, and this is very simple, which is people said, and I heard this saying in my country, I don't know if in the United States are also saying it, that, was all man-made, the coronavirus was man-made, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Man could never come with just a brilliant idea to make everyone go home. If this was a man's plan, no one could think about it so geniusly, because it has to be God's plan, because no man would think about anything. So that's one thing. Another thing is, if we think this is actually part of all these things that you were saying, that is also prophetic reasons and all these ideas that we had for a while, that something would come to happen. Oh, the event, remember the event. What is the event? No one would think that would be something like this. And of course, in the spiritual realms, no one would dare to say any clue about what was actually on plan. But if this is happening for us to open our hearts, right, and to be more compassionate and to just come more into light, then if we do it sooner than later, then we are changing collectively everything. That's why we need, all spiritual healers need to work as fast as they can to mobilize people to just meditate on that day, on that winning day, that beautiful, beautiful day where everyone's going to sing glory to heavens and to our hearts. And if we speed it up, then we are safe, because we don't need to go through these cataclysms or painful things, in my vision, if we just do what we are meant to do, which is open our hearts and just focus on compassion and solidarity and all these kind of things that this problem that humanity has now is made us think about. Because if we can help our friend and our community and whatever is in need, we are doing something very beautiful, for the world. So that's my take on it.
When you said, focus on the light, guess what you just did? You prompted me to remember another scene in my dream. So in my dream, in this great big room with those children sleeping, I was communicating with them, but I was in basically their room, and it was dark. And they were crying. Yes, they were afraid of the dark. They were afraid, and they kept talking about the boogeyman. And and what ended up happening in my dream was, I can't exactly remember when, but it was, and you know what? I even did this. I mean, I don't often do this, but I felt compelled, and in my dream, I sort of somehow brought this kind of light. So not a flashlight, but actually this kind of living light of some kind, right? And I brought this light into the room, and what happened was we showed it illuminated the big room enough for all the sleeping children to see a couple of things. Number one was, indeed, there was a boogeyman. There was like this energy that was feeding off of their fear, etc., etc., etc. But since now there was light in the room, you could see it, and you could easily see the windows and the way out of this dark room. It became instantaneous. You brought the light in, it was like, oh, well, now that it's light in here, there's no more problem. I mean, wow. So keep talking. Maybe there's another scene in my dream. I kind of like what's happening here. The symbology, right? Kind of works.
Yeah, it kind of connects, and just that the fact that we are talking and the ideas are coming, that just means that we are connected, and we didn't let fear just cut this connection above. Because if we are confident about what we are hearing and just letting everything go, it will be fine, for sure. And yes, light, definitely one of the things I said more than once throughout my life is that you can have energy, everyone can do whatever they want with energy, but light is only for good. And I don't mean this in a way that light is not for everyone. It is for everyone, but only good people can activate it. I mean, you have to have an open heart and a very unselfish spirit, if I can say this word in English, and be just that way, and so in order to have light and then spread it around. Because if you are closed within these mental ideas, there are so many people doing spiritual energy work that is just mental concepts and ideas and routines, and it doesn't have the art flow that it needs to have in order to promote healing. So sometimes that is something that everyone needs to think about right now. How connected we actually are to our higher selves and to this beam of light that we have.
So beautiful. So let's talk about, if we can, let's see if we can get past a little bit of current events. It's really hard to do that, right? But in a way, everything that we do and all of what we interact with, and meaning we as quantum healers, has to do with current events and what's going on. But let's get a little more specific about some of the stuff that you are focused on. And you and I had a conversation a few weeks ago about chakra-based movements. It seems like we did that yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like like it was just yesterday. Time is so crazy. And I've been having strange time things go on. I went to bed last night at 9:30 because I was exhausted. I was up at 11:30. A thunderstorm was coming through. I went to the barn. I got up and did work and chores and everything until almost 4. I went to sleep from 4 to 6, and then I woke up again. But I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent. Your chakra-based movements. So what I wanted to say was, I was doing them, and then getting my dad here was crazy, and I was sort of forgetting. And I would always remember them in one place, though, and that's the place where I forced myself to slow down. Absolutely forced myself. A bath. And even though you were showing me some of these movements at standing, I did them all. I have this wonderful, it's a walk-in tub I got from my mom, but I can sit, right? I can sit either all the way on the floor, or I could sit on a little thing. So I did them all, but I did them sitting as best I could. But you know what? I kept telling myself, this is perfect because I'm in the water. I've got the salt in the water. This is all going to work anyway. And I continued to do them in that way. And I think were helpful in me keeping my mood elevated right now when I'm watching a lot of people have a hard time with that.
Yes, I understand you perfectly. Yeah, chakra-based movements, it's a concept, a principle created by Julio Brantes, a friend of mine here in Portugal. But you can then work with them for different reasons. Just the fact that you are breathing correctly and focus on that aspect that I told you, that you need to breathe in that way, not the old way. Just that is just a change completely. And the concept of chakra-based movements is just that you have a position for every chakra. And I remember when we were doing, if I can share that with the audience without being too specific, that when you did the first position, you just remember of something important in your life that made you release some emotion that was stored there. So body can have this emotion stored in the chakras, and chakra-based movements works from the body to the mind. When we do spiritual healing hypnosis, for example, or any kind of modality regarding the mind, we change something and then it reflects on the body. Here, you change the body's position in order to create an energy flow that eventually would make your mind think about what's coming out at that moment. So you kind of, oh, I just remember this emotion. I just remember this moment of my life. And that's not a coincidence. So sometimes when I'm doing chakra-based movements or teaching them, people would stop and, I just remember about this situation. You just have to let them talk about it and just put it out there. So yeah, it's a very effective construct for all these 7 movements. I also teach it online now. And when I do it before sessions, for example, for everyone that does hypnosis, just the breathing aspect of it, just the first, people would go much under and much faster also with after connecting with that form of breathing. Because people who breathe with the chest, for example, they would ramp up all these heart rates and all these levels inside the biomechanics of the body. So if you learn how to breathe properly, then this will all slow down. And that's exactly what you are doing. You are using it to slow down. And that's amazing.
Yeah, and I have a captive audience with my physical body in that spot. But it's my favorite thing because you can put water all the way up to your chin, and it's not a massive amount of water either because of the unique design of the whole thing. It's a walk-in tub for older people I got from my mom. But now that Dad's here, I'm really glad that I have it. I want to mention, because a lot of people may be listening to you thinking that the breathing that you're talking about is a diaphragm kind of breathing, but it's different. It's somewhat different than that. And I'm not asking you to go into specifics or whatever at this point. I just want you all out there to know who are listening to this and maybe wanting to check out Pedro's offerings and talk to him further about this. It's not just diaphragm breathing, and it's not some yoga breathing. It's a different kind of way of looking at it, and it's been really interesting. I'd not heard of it before, and I mean, I'm not a breatharian or a yogi, but I've read about these kinds of breathing things before, and I never heard about what it is you're talking about before.
Yeah, the guy who created it, I mean, it's been for 20 years now studying every aspect of the human body. And in fact, he goes to the United States for one reason, and that reason is is not the fun thing, reason you want to do when you go travel abroad, which is he goes to the United States to buy deceased bodies, to then cut them up, to study them, just to see the fibers, and because in the United States you can do that, and that's very weird and crazy. And I said, what are you doing? So I need to study. And he says, if you look at the human body that without a soul, it's nothing. It's just cartilage and pieces. I said, okay, fair enough. And then you get used to it. But he goes to these specific details of studying so deeply every aspect of biomechanics. If you think about your feet, the way you use your feet, the way you use your knee, the position that you move your pelvis, you have so many different ways of, for example, walking. People don't walk the proper way, and that has terrible effects on your organs, because your organs are moving in a different way. If you move with the feet exactly as you should, not moving the head for sure, people sometimes walk with their heads, and that's another problem for the neck and also for a lot of problems. So this goes very deep, and it goes also to the Tibetan monks retreats, where he goes there and studies also their behaviors, and he comes back and says, they are very good, but they could be a whole better. Just for he dares to say that, but very, very short, and he explains it why. And I have this course with him, which is metaphysical anatomy, which we all talk about the origins of emotional and mental origins of all diseases, and I explain them from what we already know a lot, emotions and behaviors and personality traces, and he explains them by mechanics. Like sometimes he looks at the feet and says, oh, you have the feet like that, you have a problem in this organ, right? And people say, yeah, how do you know? And I saw this man looking at an x-ray of a knee, and looking at the x-ray of a knee, saying to this guy in front of me, right here in my office, saying, you must have bladder problems, right? And you got, yeah, not now, but when I was a kid. And then he explained it, and I listened to the words, and I couldn't get anything from it. I just know that he was actually saying the logic behind it, and it has a logic, scientific logic. That's the strange thing. So for him, coronavirus is very frustrating, because a few days ago I was talking with him on the phone. He was saying, everyone is focused on the breathing and say, oh, let's do this test. Let's all put air in it. I don't know if you know about that test for coronavirus. If you can hold the air 10 seconds. And it was just like laughing, said, they say deep. Where is deep? Say, breathe deeply. Where is it? Because people don't know how to really make a deep, deep breathing. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting guy.
So yeah, it is fascinating. I have so many thoughts as you're talking, but back to your knee story, did it have any correlation to kind of the meridians and the Chinese way of looking at energy systems? Because I know there's a bladder point along the leg somewhere. I mean, yeah,
it might have. He also knows everything about those meridian systems, but it has to do with mechanics, purely mechanics. Like it's like if you bounce a ball through a wall, right? The ball hitting that place exactly on the wall, it's going to come back to a specific point. If you know all the relations in all the wall, let's say the wall is the human body. If the ball is every movement that you do when you walk, and remember that we are heavy, and the atmosphere it's really heavy for us human body. Sometimes I even heard Pamela saying that this ADN structure is not prepared for this earth because of the weight. So, but that being said, if you look at these relations between forces and impacts, then you have this correlation of where the force is going to go. I saw him also do this relation where someone was having the knees bended inside, when you have your feet and then your knees are like that. And then specifically looking at those knees, he said, you must have problems in your ovaries. Ovaries, he said. And this woman replied, and this was also in the course, he replied saying, I don't have them anymore. I said, of course you don't have them, because with this kind of knee, you wouldn't be healthy with it. So that's the logic of chakra-based movements, is to correct. That's why we say put the knees out. Because if you put the knees out and you make them align with your pelvis, then the structure of your bone, pelvic bone, it will be on the right place, not inside and not off And then eventually your organs would be aligned with your shoulders, and then your neck would be on constant stress, and that's the logic of it all. It's purely mechanics.
I love this so much. And I have known for the longest time, I've watched, even before I got into any of this, even when I was a teenager, and I've watched the concept just in my family and in my friends and etc. People who've had things removed out of them, sometimes, for reasons that aren't very, very obvious, or, or they're doing it electively, or they're doing it just to see if it helps, different things like removing tonsils and removing, from male children when they're first born, we remove that part, the removal of uterus and ovaries, sometimes both, for hysterectomies. Not that people don't suffer and find relief with that. My own mother had a hysterectomy, but and she needed it, and she was better afterwards, but she kept her ovaries, and that was something. And sometimes the fact that the uterus leaves the pelvis changes absolutely everything. It's designed to hold everything up there. And so now, many women in their older ages, their organs are dropping, and then they have to have, then the doctors, the surgeons come back and go, well, we'll put this mesh in there. And now there's that whole problem with putting this foreign thing in your body to try to do the job that, it's kind of a mess. And I am not completely dissing surgery and removal of things that are, an appendix that burst or whatever. I went through all of that with my dad. Boy, that was interesting. That's really interesting. You want to go down that tangent, but he ended up, because he has such an amazing healing ability, he ended up, they were going to do this thing because he had a perforated appendix. He had a perforated appendix. This happened just weeks after my mother died. And if you look into what an appendix is metaphysically, it made all kinds of sense, right? And it's doing this thing. And we were going back and forth, and they treat it with antibiotics unless it's exploded, but anyway, they were going to help it drain because of whatever. And it was okay because they were going to go in and make like this drain thing, because they still saw a pocket, and we kept checking with the scans, and it was just right there. They're just going to put a small drain in, and no need for major surgery. And I got him through that whole thing, and they got him to the hospital. This is so my dad. I mean, I can hear him walking around upstairs right now. This is so my dad. It was there ready for the thing to happen the one day. And the next day we got him there, and they actually do it like while the scan is going, because they can see where to go, where to put the little drain. They wheel him into where the scan is, where they're going to put this little drain in, and his intestines went, nope. And they just moved over and covered it like this. And he came back very quickly from the procedure, and they went, well, we can't get to it because of, his intestines showed us what was wrong. But when we got to the surgery, his whole body went, yeah, I don't think so. And covered it up, kept it together. An additional round of antibiotics solved the problem. Basically, his whole body said, no surgery, no thank you very much, we'll just handle this. I mean, yeah, help with antibiotics, no question. But I find what you're talking about, everything that goes on with the human body, absolutely fascinating. Nothing that happens to you or your body is a coincidence, an accident, or doesn't mean anything. Even to the whole idea of stubbing a toe when you're going from here to there. Everything has meaning, doesn't it? Especially with
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And one thing I need to say is think about the human body as non-verbal communication it has built in. So when you change a thought or an emotion, you're going to do things differently. What these two perspectives can give you is that either you analyze it from what you are doing, or you just observe very thoroughly what the body is doing. And that's its speciality, but I've been living for 3 years now with him and all these perspectives of looking at the body and saying, okay, this person is developing this, so you must have this personality traces. But regarding the human body and its ability to change, when we remove an organ or something, if you don't change the mechanics, or you don't change whatever happened, whatever is the metaphysical origin of that behavior, something's gonna happen somewhere else, you know. And also these invisible lines of neurotransmissions that we have in the body that are not measurables yet by any machine. People sometimes have pain in some places. He is very, very good in just taking this pain away, or just changing the neuromotor, if I can say that, programmation that we have in the body. So imagine that when you are born, you start learning how to walk, and it stays forever. No one's going to correct the way you walk, or the way you sit, or the way you move your legs. You're just going to move it the way you always did. And that's fine, because you had to pay attention to these gazillion muscles that you have, and just change the direction of everything that's doing. So I sometimes do this work with some of my clients that is changing the way they walk. And they become so confused when I say, please walk with their feet like that. Just change the feet. And they start walking very funny. I don't know how to walk like that. And then after half an hour, the programming starts happening, because our unconscious mind just learns very quickly. So just regarding that, let me tell you one very quick story, which happened with a client of mine, that she was having breast cancer, left side, right side, and then she came to me already with no breasts and with no ovaries. But funny enough, she had this immense desire to become a mom. And that was still possible, because somehow she has a uterus, and I think they could have made it work somehow, even without ovaries. I don't know, it's just something that she told me. But her they took her ovaries for prevention, which is something, it's very hard for me to understand. Prevention, just to not promote hormones and to help not develop cancer again. Which, if you don't change whatever it's the mental and emotional origin, doesn't do anything. But regardless, they had this operation. They took her ovaries, but her hormones result, it was the same as she would still have the ovaries, which was very strange, because how can this be? She even had periods for a couple of months, but the doctor said, oh, this can be remnants of just some bleeding because of this and that. None of that was convincing. This woman doesn't have ovaries, and she has, for 2 months, she still had period. But the fact is that the hormones, the test results was saying that she was not in menopause. So she was just being healthy and doing everything normal. So the human body somehow arranged. You know what they did? Instead of just thinking, and I'm really criticizing this because I don't mind. In Portugal, I can do this, which is, instead of looking at this woman and saying, let's try to understand why is this woman's body doing that? No, they just gave her this medicine just to make it stop. They said, we have to force this woman to go to menopause. So we need to change this result. So here's a drug. And then eventually she did, after 3 months. And I asked this question, from what price is this happening? Because this woman was self-arranging biologically inside the body. So now we just take a drug, and now we have the result you want. Okay, she's not producing those hormones anymore. But what happened? And why was she doing that? You know, so human body is still a very large mystery for everyone, even for medicine. And I don't want to come out here saying I disagree with medicine or I criticize everything. I agree with everything they do. I think they are amazing, but they also are human beings. And sometimes in these decisions of becoming fear, that we have to think about things with a mystery. Like, is this a mystery? Yes, it can be. Because if we think that we know everything about the human body, then you don't do the question, then you don't learn, you don't try to evolve. And that's the only thing I'm saying. I think this doctor that made this decision to give this medicine to this woman should have been more curious, like Dolores Cannon was said so many times. Just be curious about it.
Yeah.
And that would be fine.
I think I'm very disturbed with the whole statement in many regards of the science is settled in many different ways. The science should never be settled on almost anything, right?
Of course.
But guess what you did just again? You prompted another vision of a dream that I had last night that I didn't know So you said
Wow.
something in that last story. So let's analyze this part. You and I love talking about dreams and symbology and analyzing. We start out with sessions and dreams and lots of different ways of looking at the way the imagination and the way your higher self talks to you and everything. So here was another part of my dream, and a completely different scene in my dream. I was in a pool of water, and there were people out there somewhere, but there were a couple people, and I'll just not say who they are right now, just because I don't know what you're going to say, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. But there were a couple people near me, and we were all absolutely going into this pool of water, which of course, Dolores Cannon in my dreams has always said, water's liquid consciousness. So we're in this pool of water. It's very clean, very beautiful water. It was beautiful, warm, not calm, very, really nice water to be in. There was actually a shower over here and kind of water elements, but people were coming in and going out as they found it necessary. Two people who I know pretty well were near me. They got in and out. I watched one person had quite a bit of trouble getting out because they were very, very heavy. Their body was very, very heavy. They were like, they got in the water, but they were like, okay, I kind of had enough, and now they're getting out. And I remember thinking that I didn't really realize how much that weight was affecting them, right? But I stayed in the water for some reason. And while I was there, Pedro, I passed some menstrual blood. And every woman knows this. Sometimes when you are, when you have your monthlies, you pass kind of some dried or clotted blood. And I passed a small amount of blood and some in my dream, and a clotted piece. Now at the time, I'm aware that I am a woman who, I'm going to be 59 this summer, and I've gone through menopause, and I haven't had that experience in this physical body for some time. And I was in my dream, I'm like, wait a second, I've passed that point. It's been a long time since I have had that happen, and I haven't even had time to ponder this scene in my dream because you just had me remind me of it. So what do you make of this dream?
Well, very interesting, for sure. As you know, I use all these places, like if you know about the beautiful place in the world, and I sometimes even make people imagine a landscape or anything natural, and then I analyze everything. So in this case, you have a pool. Was that pool, just me ask you this, was that pool big, small? How did you feel the size of the pool was?
There was like a small inlet where the two people I knew came and left, but it was connected to a beautiful big pool of others.
All right, so this pool, if the water is clean and it's comfortable, it means that emotionally you will find, or you will have the space to just be in this very beautiful emotional place. Think about water right now as emotion, right? So you have a clear, crisp, comfortable emotion that you and those people are gonna share among you. The heavy person means that that person is actually probably having a hard time to just stay in this bubble. Let's think about the water as a bubble of energy, that positive energy that you are living now. So it's contained, but also connecting. So it means that in this moment, or in this next moment for like a week, 2 or 3, you would find that space, you will find your space and feel comfortable in it, right? But the thing about the menstruation and all this flushing out, you know that symbolically and also metaphysically, this time of the month for the woman is just an opportunity to flush out everything that they need to flush out. So your dream is saying that you are, or you will be, flushing out some contained emotions that you don't need anymore into this water. Then your morality activates, and this is strange, but if you can bypass the morality of your mind and just focus on the natural releasing of that moment, which actually means a very good thing. When I dream with water, it's always a very important thing for me, because I understand how my next 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month is going to be. And this is a very good prophetic dream, which means that you will have that thing. But the heavy person, you need to take consideration that this person might be caught in this, agitation, mental agitation, or is being caught. And so you better do something to bring her back into water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I just remember being quite surprised that, I mean, I knew about the person's condition. I was surprised at how difficult they were finding it. So interesting. I love your analysis there. It was, I still have a very big mental image of this. And it was sort of like, oh, well, I didn't know that was going to be released. And it's exactly that. It was released, but it was released in this beautiful, clean place. But I also remember thinking, these other two people had already left. They'd already exited the little inlet. So when I had that release, as an example, they weren't affected by what I was releasing. And I was very happy about that this wasn't, if it was a real pool and that happened, anybody who cares about other people would find that a little bit disturbing.
But that's your morality. That doesn't mean anything for your unconscious mind. That is communicating something to you. It's just, the problem is just your morality. So you can forget about that aspect of not being comfortable.
Okay, but wait a second. What if these people stayed in the pool with me and I released that? And then in my dream, I got all completely concerned that they may be affected by the releasement.
It's very simple. Whatever you are releasing, you're going to release it alone. That's what your dreaming is saying. Whatever you have to release, you're going to release it alone.
Yeah,
if you had people around you and they would be affected by that release, I don't know what is. Maybe you already know what I'm talking about. No, but
I don't know. I have to ponder that. Maybe, but I don't know. I ponder things. I don't always take my first thought. I take the strongest or most persistent one. And sometimes that's not always the very, very first one. Something may come along later that really shows me, because these dreams were kind of crazy. As a matter of fact, I was so awake at 3:30. I didn't know if I was going to be able to go back to sleep at all. And I was thinking, I got to sleep a little bit. I'm going to be recording with Pedro. I got to look like a little bit like I had some sleep.
Well, interestingly enough, I had this last week. And me and this friend of mine, which is a medium, a psychic, and she woke up at 4:30, both of us, and I couldn't sleep anymore for that day, and her too, and it was very strange. So there's energies going on, guides, I think they are now reaching us and really waking us up sooner so that we can do this amazing work. But interestingly enough, you have such a strong connection today because you are getting this information very quickly. So it also means that, I think that being wake up means that the guides are going to be closer to you throughout the day, maybe. But one thing I need to ask you regarding your dream still. Yeah. When you were flushing that blood out, did you know beforehand, or did you just realize after it was already in water?
No, while it was happening, the blood, boy, this is really very graphic, even though it's just a dream, but the blood first, and I was surprised, saw it, knew what it was, knew that I didn't know that was coming. The dried, and it wasn't a giant thing, it was but a little small blood clot came out too. That one really surprised me, and I don't know, maybe even the shape of it did. It was a very round shape. It was like a disc, almost like it wasn't like this. It was very
contained.
Yeah.
It was contained.
Yes,
it means that whatever's coming out is going to come out contained. But I think you only would know about it when it comes out. That's why I was asking that.
I think that you're right there. So I may just have to see when this happens and how it comes out.
Let me know.
How amazing is that? Well, let's go back to Dolores Cannon, because you're reminding me of something else now. And it's something that's happening in my life now. So so we're in this, a lot of people are like, I'm bored, I'm not working, I'm stuck at home, Oh my goodness, because our business is online, suddenly our business is like 3 times as big, with stuff happening. Every hour I'm looking at the email. It's hard to keep up. People are going through the BQH course so fast. We're having to do our tasks so much faster. People are finding us, lots of communication. So we aren't slowing down at all. As a matter of fact, the exact opposite. There's so much more interest in what's going on. Of course, I had to throw out my office, move my father in. So my office is in pieces everywhere. I got files here. I found this microphone like in a shoebox, like 10 minutes before this show. I mean, stuff is crazy in my house. On top of all of that, my horse, the horse that I've had the longest, his name is Rio, and he is my boy. He's of all of my herd out there, I've had him the longest. He's 22 this year. And you're going to love this. You are going to love this, I think. So in a BQH session I had 2 weeks ago, something like that, extraordinary connection with this woman who had an extraordinary, amazing healing session. At the very end, Dolores Cannon comes in. Not unusual. This happens a lot. She had a lot of things to say to the woman. Not unusual. She had a couple things to say to me. Again, not unusual. But this time it was so incredibly specific. And I mentioned this a little bit out there before, but I'll tell you for context now and for the people who are watching. She was doing this thing with healing the other woman. She told me to connect with the other woman with her hands. They was talking about portals and crystals in the palms of hands for healing. Very, very interesting. Some of what was going on was Dolores Cannon, through this woman's voice, was telling her what to do, telling me what to do. Activating the crystals in these hands for healing purposes. It's sort of a download, an expansion of healing, actually hands-on healing, but also distance healing, focusing on imagination of the hands, right? And all that was going on. And Dolores Cannon then, through the client, says, and go use your hands on your brown and white horse on his left front leg. Just out of the blue says this. I don't even, I don't even know that this woman knows I have horses. I talk about horses, so maybe, but the only brown and white horse that I have, and he had nothing wrong with his leg. Nothing at all. Has no history of anything wrong with that leg. About 3 days later, he comes back in from the pasture limping on that leg. Well, I mean, and by the way, I followed the directive. I'd been putting my hands on his leg a little bit, because Dolores, I do what Dolores tells me to do. I just do, especially in sessions and meditations or whatever. I follow what that woman says. I follow what she says a lot, more now, maybe even than ever. Anyway, I'm doing all of that, and I'm watching him limp in. Anyway, he ends up, we don't know. I keep him in. I follow my vet's advice, and the very next day is his weekly, or not weekly. Every 6 weeks, the horses get their hooves looked at by a professional trimmer. He comes in 10 hours before that appointment. How perfect is that timing, right? So she gets to tell me what she thinks. She thinks it's going to be this abscess. Abscess in horses' hooves are fairly common. I haven't happened to see one before, so this is interesting. Even though I've had horses for more than 50 years, well, no, almost 50 years of horses. I've never seen one. I've known other horses owners who've had to deal with one, so I've had to deal with this. But in my meditation yesterday, even though now I've been doing the right on the place where he's been sore, in my meditation yesterday, I heard Dolores say, you don't have to actually be in the barn to do this. Do it right now while you're in this meditative place. Imagine your hands, just like Reiki, this is nothing new, right? But I'm listening to what she's saying. My hands are getting hot as I'm thinking about it. I imagine holding his hoof. He didn't, so we're suspecting an abscess now for almost a week, but nothing ever shows up. So we don't really know. I'm watching. And he's limping. She says to do this. I do it. I go out to the barn. In the next couple hours, he seems to have relief. I look at his foot and the abscess now is open. Right before I did what Dolores said and used my imagination to do this before I even got out there, and everything shifted from there. And what I want to tell all of you out there who might be thinking, I wish Dolores did that for me. Guess what? You have it too. This isn't anything any of you don't have, right? Maybe we're all being upgraded with portals and healing in our hands. Maybe that's part of this too. This isn't just me and I'm special and I was anointed or whatever. Forget that. This is you too. This is all of us. And this is more about the timeline stuff, right? And imagining and thinking about, like Cynthia Sue Larson, how good can it get? How good can it get? And I did. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm holding on his foot. And now the next time I see him and he's going to be better. And it's exactly what happened.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everyone, I agree 100%. Everyone has this ability. Everyone can do this for sure. The thing is that when you were doing it, you do believe that you have it. And that's one of the main reasons it works, is that you have to actually understand that belief and faith is actually the mechanism that activates your travel into these different timelines. If you know a little bit of quantum mechanics and the concept of quantum entanglement, which made Niels Bohr and Einstein have this lovely, interesting conversation about Niels Bohr saying that the particles don't have position and they can communicate wherever they are. And Einstein replied saying, this can't be because God doesn't play dice. And Niels Bohr replies saying, don't tell God what to do. And, this is one of the most memorable conversations these two scientists had at that point, 1930, around that. So the fact is that all particles are communicating instantly. If we know a little bit of quantum mechanics, and that's why I have this concept, quantum spirituality, which is, it's the connection between this quantum world to the spiritual practice of vibration and timeline shifting. So if you know a little bit about that, then you understand that we are not actually creating anything. We are just moved into these places where these are already created. When you activate this vibration of him being healed, you just go see the horse healed out there because you moved and because your vibration matched that reality. It's not like we are changing that horse. You're just moving into the reality where that horse is different altogether. So that's the concept between quantum spirituality and quantum spiritual hypnosis, which is the practice where you make people jump or be aware of those vibrations inside of us, because we do all have these vibrations inside. So regarding these modalities, you can heal anyone. It's just like anything, like crystals and all these other things. They are just permission slips that make you activate your inner power that is so big that you can actually do anything and heal yourself from anything. The thing is that sometimes people are doing it mentally, and one of the struggles I do also in the work that I investigating the origins of cancer, and I'm saying that it's very hard because in order to develop cancer, you have to have a structure conflicting in your mind. It has to have, in Portuguese there's a name for it, but I mean in English has to be a dissociative cognitive conflict, if I can translate this way. And that makes everything so much difficult for someone to heal someone that is with that disease, because the disease only appears when you have that mechanism going on. So that being said, if you want to heal, it has to come from an inner light, a place inside you that connects with that force, that light, that space that you were in. And I can actually see you just closing your eyes and imagining your horse's leg, and that space activates something in you. And that space is also silence. It's a space that some of you know, and some of you have to maybe try to find it, because once you find it, it's there. You can do anything. You just can fix everything, and that's amazing.
Yep.
That's the way of.
I love the stories about it too. And I'm really feeling Dolores here. And you know, I say this to everybody, but I completely believe it. She is the absolute easiest person to talk to in the spirit realm. She's visiting so many people in their dreams, just in their thoughts, in their daydreams, in their meditations or whatever. And, you know, I can just hear her saying right now, if you want crystals in your hand, just imagining I'm putting them in there for you too. And, I mean, and really, I'm talking to any of you out there who are listening who love Dolores. I know with every fiber of my being, she left the planet when she did. It was a little bit of surprise to the mortal Dolores Cannon, who was just in her mid 80s, because she really thought she was going to be working until she was 100. She was going to be alive. Well, she is working all these years, but just right on the other side of the veil, and she's working with all of us. And right now, more than ever, right now, more than ever. And, you know, put this video on pause, or when it's all over, go imagine Dolores coming to you and putting crystals in your hands. You know, distance healing isn't a new concept for me, and there's different things going on in the world and with my dad and all of what's going on, you know, here in March 2020. You know, I've taken care of my horse for sure, but I haven't been completely focused on only him. There are so many other things to deal with right now. But, you know, even that was just a little prompt, you know, just remember kind of, and we all have to remember, don't we? Even people who teach this stuff, we have to remind ourselves not to keep going and going and going and not do these things ourselves, right? As teachers.
Of course. And sometimes feedback is also very important regarding this concept and also communication. In the other day, I was doing this meditation, and one of the parts of the meditation was for people first to receive this pink light into their hearts, and then to focus on the family members, taking that light to their hearts. And then this woman was on my meditation that we are doing online, and we were more than 200 people connected, 100 in Zoom and more watching live on Facebook. And suddenly the energy that she was putting in the heart was that it's all over, it's glory, victor, everything we've talked about today too. And suddenly after 5 minutes, that woman's sister phoned her and said, look, I was here and I felt you, and I felt like this is all over. It was very strange for me. What's happening? And she was like discussing that she was feeling everything. But the thing is not, she could have felt so many emotions, but she was describing exactly the emotion. The emotion was, it felt like this was all over, and it was everything was okay now. And so, yeah, communication is. That woman was in France, and this other one was in Portugal watching my meditation. It was very interesting story, you know, just to remind of us what we are doing.
Yeah, you know, I think Pedro and I have already decided we're probably going to release this before the intended date, because I think it'll help shift the timeline. But one of the shows that I've already recorded that I will hold on to and release during Worldwide Regression Week is, and it's not that I'm going to tell the plot of this show, but Cynthia Sue Larson and I talked, and she's the Mandela effect person, physics person, who spoke at the first and second Mandela conference. Maybe there's only been one. Oh my goodness, I don't even know. Anyway, in our interview, when you all will watch this, we actually talk about objects showing up and going, and people, and by location, and all of what you've just talked about. And I was telling her that, you know, there's 1 or 2 pieces of jewelry I wish would fall out of the sky and land in front of me just for sentimental value. And she was laughing, and she was talking about that and everything. And the very next day, I mean, less than 12 hours later, she calls me, she texts me and tells me that not her, but a really, really good friend of hers. So this isn't even in the show, but a really, really good friend of hers who had been missing a piece of jewelry for 19 years. It suddenly turned up in the strangest of places. It couldn't have actually, you know, happened the way it did. And Cynthia was like, I think that happened because we had that conversation yesterday, and I'm sure of it. And while we were talking about this, we were talking about roses and some other things too. Guess what happens? At that exact same time that we're talking then about the continued next sentence about the roses and all that, because it was one of the things that was created out of thin air. This woman walks, because I'm doing this in a parking lot on the telephone. This woman walks in front of my truck carrying a bouquet of roses. Interestingly enough, she was Asian, and she looked as she might have been Chinese. Just floored. And I'm getting ready to go into the grocery store back in the, get some supplies before all of this stuff happens. I mean, the connections are crazy. And I think it's easier to connect now and easier to shift things now than ever. And maybe that's what we mean about this whole expansion and event and everything happening right now. That we have this opportunity to make all of these, and magic, I've said it over and over again, magic's real, this kind of magic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we learn a little bit about what reality is, this is so much more malleable than we could ever imagine. This is so much more malleable. The only reason we have like this subconscious and conscious parts of our minds and this densification into a DNA body is to hold on some kind of structure, because if not, we would be nothing fixed, and it would be so much more confusing if suddenly I would arrive home and would have a different family and tomorrow a different car and whatever. You couldn't do anything. So that's the structure, this co-creation that we are having. It's a structure that we define, but as our energy level goes up and we are doing individually but also collectively, then we are accessing more of the energy that taps into this malleability, if I can say, sorry, Portuguese is difficult. So this energy that makes everything become so much more malleable, and you can see that. So your belief system connecting to that, if you start believing that this is malleable, if you start working consciously on that and open yourself to those coincidences and those signs and those happenings, this becomes so much more fun. I mean, it's so much more fun, isn't it?
It's so fun. My first experience with all of this, watching the malleability, was a series of, I'm busy writing about it, of course, everything, it gets put on hold all the time. But this is what got me to Dolores Cannon. It was a series of events that, and the next day and then the next weeks and months, but primarily the next day after this huge event that I had, I kept looking around saying, this is just, I mean, I thought, our camera's following me, because what is happening to me is so unreal. It's like in a movie and stuff just, and so then after 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, I just started expecting it, because it was so much fun and it was so real and it was so powerful. And they just kept coming. They just kept coming and coming and coming. And that's how and why, in the end, I knew, even which would end up being 2 or 3, 4 months later, I don't know, going to Arkansas, that I was going to be the one that Dolores Cannon would choose to do a session on, even though I didn't put my name on her list. It was all of those things. I went there and I just kind of sat and I went, is this really going to happen? Is this really going to happen? And it did. I mean, it's so crazy. And I could hear her say it too. And it just gonna keep on happening. Anyway, this is the kind of thing that Dolores Cannon discovered. And when she, and I know that Nostradamus had a big part of this, even though she's always even, trying to shift us to the place where the doomsday negative prophecies have, we've moved away. The rubber band has taken us away from that. I think she wants to be very clear about that. But here's the thing. The one and only night I ever spent in Dolores Cannon's house was the night before her memorial service. And in that night, I had multiple dreams. She was in every single one of them, as you might imagine. But the one I remember most, and the one that is to this day the most interesting one, was she actually came into the room where I was in from her office, and I was sleeping on a little day bed, and she was kind of like, she had her arm around somebody, and she was like, and it's a man, and she walks up to me, and she only says a couple of sentences, but she says, Candace, I want you to meet my friend Nostradamus. And what she says to me in the stream is, and I got a couple emails from people who wanted to know. I want to talk to you about Dolores Cannon and Nostradamus because of the events going on now. And what she said to me then, and she's like, "That's why I'm telling you to tell everyone this now. Don't. What I want you to do is focus on." How did she say it? The way they were communicating was the important message to get from them. The way they were communicating, not the ideas, the prophecies. Forget those. Throw those out. Throw those out. Focus more on the fact that she could communicate with him and he with her, and they figured out how to cross time and space to do that. And they did it through through several hypnosis clients. It was like through, I don't even know in the end, 7, 8, something like that. That's the important thing here, not the quatrains, not the analyzing, not the mental gyrations here. It's the communication through time and space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Nostradamus, I actually just remembering that 20 years ago, I was reading Nostradamus. But you know what? There is this also prophet in Portugal, like 200 years ago, I believe, called Bandarra, and their prophecies, his prophecies, was very close to Nostradamus as well. I find this thing that Dolores Cannon did regarding the Nostradamus communication so interesting and so important in the openness of everything that then happened after that. I think she helped us look into time and space in such a different way, and I cannot be more thankful of having QHHT and learning, even though it was through a recording, because when I studied the course, she was already passed, and getting just the energy and everything that she taught us regarding time and space was actually the beginning of it. Of course, when she was alive, she would see past lives in a different way than I see it now. Sure. Because I see this all much more malleable. I see this all timelines shifting, and you can access them. I also believe that you are this person and you have timelines, parallel timelines in past and future, but you're not those persons. If you can understand what I'm saying, you are just only are Candice. That's the only person you can be. These other parallel versions of you as are you, as I am you as well, as everyone is the same. So if you can expand on that idea, we are all the same anyway. So if you think about all these people that have this belief that, oh, I must see what I was in the past life. Yeah. So to understand, it becomes a little bit irrelevant. It's also very powerful too, and it's still very powerful practice. I all do it all the time. Even with people that don't believe in past lives, I fix their unconscious through past lives and change the timelines in their past lives. But people need to change their idea about that just to become more conscious that they are creating this all from zero. It doesn't have to be a creation that, oh, I can create this as good because in the past life I killed 200 people. No, it doesn't work like that. You're just connecting to that experience that you need to see it for a reason, but it doesn't have to be something that is going to be limiting for you. It doesn't have to be, because you can also learn from that experience, have an insight, and then release it and change something else in this timeline that affects the other timeline, and so on and so on. So eventually, I keep saying this, but it's true. It's always very, very malleable and very, very fixable and very changeable in all aspects of life.
I'm getting so many cool ideas. You and I have been talking for an hour and a half already. It's a really good thing that we swapped our time out, because if we would have done what I was trying to do an hour, 2 hours, like however long ago, it was 3 hours. Oh gosh. Anyway, we would have had to quit, but I'm glad we didn't have to do that, because how rich this conversation has been with you. There's one thing I wanted to say. I wrote a note as we were talking. Nostradamus, in an interview he had at some point, somebody asked him, where are you getting this information that, these quatrains, where is it coming from? Not just what are they and what do they mean or whatever, but where are they coming from? And he said that he's found a way to talk to spirits from the future. Now I took that as he's, you know, in some way that he's talking to Dolores. That is written. That is written from a written interview back when he was physically alive. He said he talked to spirits of the future, and I fully believe that was Dolores, in at least in part. So, and possibly many others. Who even?
Let me just say one thing regarding that illusion of time. If you look at astrology, for example, and if you look at those planets out there and you say, oh, they're out there, planets was already there saying what's going to happen. And I say, no, you are creating it all, and that's flashing back to the creation of the universe that made that star being there at that moment. It's all connected somehow, that weird way. Although I think, no, that was, the stars were already there. I know no, it wasn't. And that's the same with Nostradamus. Oh, he's in the past and I'm in the future. No, it's not past or future. And that's so confusing that our brains can't cope with it. And the only thing I can say is just that time periods is just a vibration. It's just a vibrational code. If you can activate that vibrational code, you are there and you are here, and you can just swap around all these time periods and frames just like that. So yeah, that is definitely one of the most interesting things of Dolores' work. Yep. Is who came first with the information, right. Him or her?
Right? Who even knows? And on that note, I think it would be a perfect way to sort of wrap up our show and our talk today by talking about creating, again, this timeline of this current situation that we're in, ending in a celebration of such an enormous magnitude of elation, jubilation, and joy. I feel it in the marrow of my bones. I would never even dream of placing a date on this, but I feel it. I don't know when it's going to happen, but maybe if more of us focus on that, it'll happen. We'll manifest it a little more quickly. We'll put links below this show, how to get a hold of Pedro, and maybe even he has some dates planned where we can join him. Either in Portuguese with the vibration or in English when we can actually understand his words. Pedro, thank you so much for today, personally, and for the world, and for all quantum healers. The work you do is so amazing. You jump online and do live stuff all the time, and I always listen for a little bit, even though I have no idea what you're saying because it's typically in Portuguese. But thank you for the whole world, from the whole world.
Thank you, Candice. Also in the name of the whole world too, because your work is so very important for everyone here. And I feel delighted and honored to be part of this show, to be part of this community. And if I can help you in any way, I'll be always 100% available. You know that. Yay. So I help you strive the regression week and whatever you have planned.
Perfect. Remembering it's unleash your mind. So unleash your mind from times, from controllers, from everything else. I'll do a little bit of editing on this video to make some of that a little more palatable, and we'll get this out there. I think we should just do more of these because they're just so much fun, and
we just got off so much off track.
Yeah,
with so many ideas.
There's so many things. Yeah, but that's fun, and that, and people are home now to be able to listen to this. So we'll get it out there, and we'll do it again if we can. Maybe even another one for the events coming up in April, meaning our events, hopefully that they're still on. Well, thank you all for listening. Definitely check out our Worldwide Regression Week 2020, officially launching April 12th, moving through to the 19th. Unleash your mind. Stay tuned for all of that coming up in April, and check us out at quantumhealers.com. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.